Independence Day. During the Spanish-American War, Filipino rebels led by Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed the independence of the Philippines after 300 years of Spanish rule. By mid-August, Filipino rebels and U.S. troops had ousted the Spanish, but Aguinaldo's hope for independence were dashed when the United States formally annexed the Philippines as part of its peace treaty with Spain. The Philippines, a large island archipelago situated off Southeast Asia, was colonized by the Spanish in the latter part of the 16th century. Opposition to Spanish rule began among Filipino priests who resented Spanish dominion of the Roman Catholic churches in the islands. In the late 19th century, Filipino intellectuals and the middle class began calling for independence. In 1892, the Katipunan, a secret revolutionary society, was formed in Manila, the Philippine capital of the island of Luzon. Membership grew dramatically, and in August 1996, the Spanish uncovered the Katipunan's plan for rebellion, forcing premature action from the rebels. Revolt broke out across Luzon, and in March 1897, 28-year-old Emilio Aguinaldo became leader of the rebellion. By late 1897, the revolutionaries had been driven into the hills southeast of Manila, and Aguinaldo negotiated an agreement with the Spanish. In exchange for financial compensation and the promise of reform in the Philippines, Aguinaldo and his generals would accept exile in Hong Kong. The rebel leaders departed, and the Philippine Revolution temporarily was at an end. In April 1898, the Spanish-American War broke out over Spanish brutal suppression of a rebellion in Cuba, the first in a series of decisive U.S. victories occurred on May 1, 1898. When the U.S. Asiatic Squadron under Commodore George Dewey annihilated the Spanish Pacific Fleet at the Battle of Manila Bay in the Philippines. From his exile, Aguinaldo made arrangements with the U.S. authorities to return to the Philippines and assist the United States in the war against Spain. He landed on May 19, rallied his revolutionaries, and began liberating towns such as Manila. On June 12, he proclaimed Philippine independence and established a provincial government, of which he subsequently became head. His rebels meanwhile had encircled the Spanish in Manila, and with the support of Dewey's squadron in Manila Bay, would surely have conquered the Spanish. Dewey, however, was waiting for U.S. ground troops, which began landing in July and took over the Filipino possessions surrounding Manila. On August 8, the Spanish commander informed the United States that he would surrender the city under two conditions. The United States was to make the advance in the capital look like a battle, and under no conditions were the Filipino rebels to be allowed in the city. On August 13, the mock Battle of Manila was staged, and the Americans kept their promise to keep the Filipinos out after the city passed into their hands. While the Americans occupied Manila and planned peace negotiations with Spain, Aguinaldo convened a revolutionary assembly, the Malolos, in September. They drew up a democratic constitution, the first ever in Asia, and the government was formed with Aguinaldo as president in January 1899. On February 4, what became known as the Philippine Insurrection began when Filipino rebels and the U.S. troops skirmished inside American lines in Manila. 2 days later, the US state voted by one vote to ratify the Treaty of Paris with Spain. The Philippines were now a US territory, acquired in exchange for $20 million in compensation to the Spanish. In response, Aguinaldo formally launched a new revolt, this time against the United States. The rebels, consistently defeated in the open field, turned to guerrilla warfare and the US. Congress authorized the deployment of 60,000 troops to subdue them. By the end of 1899, there were 65,000 US troops in the Philippines, but the war dragged on. Many anti-imperialists in the United States, such as Democratic presidential candidate William, opposed US annexation of the Philippines. But in November 1900, Republican incumbent William McKinley was re-elected and the war continued. On March 23, 1901, in a daring operation, U.S. Frederick Funston and a group of officers pretending to be prisoners surprised Aguinaldo in his stronghold in the Luzon village of Palanan and captured the rebel leader. Aguinaldo took an oath of allegiance to the United States and called for an end to the rebellion. But many of his followers fought on. During the next year, U.S. forces gradually pacified the Philippines. In an infamous episode, U.S. forces on the island of Samar retaliated against the massacre of a U.S. garrison by killing all men on the island above the age of 10. Many women and young men on the island were also butchered. General Jacob Smith, who directed the atrocities, was court-martialed and forced to retire for turning Samar, in his words, in the howling wilderness. In 1902, American civil government took over administration of the Philippines, and the 3-year Philippine insurrection was declared to be at end. Scattered resistance, however, persisted for several years. More than 4,000 Americans perished, suppressing the Philippines more than 10 times the number killed in the Spanish-American War. More than 20,000 Filipino insurgents were killed, and an unknown number of civilians perished. In 1935, the Commonwealth of the Philippines was established with the U.S. approval, and Manuel Quezon was elected the country's first president. On July 4, 1946, full independence was granted to the Republic of the Philippines by the United States. As we commemorate the 125th anniversary of Philippine independence from 2023 to 2026, we'll give focus on the freedom that our forebears struggled forwards, that they dreamed for the country, and the history that we seek to remember and honor them. Republic Act 10086, or the Strengthening People's Nationalism Through Philippine History Act, provides that the state shall provide the means to strengthen Filipinos' nationalism, love of country, respect for its heroes, and the pride for the people's accomplishment by reinforcing the importance of Philippine national and local history in daily life with the end view of raising social consciousness. The 125th anniversary of Philippine independence and nationhood will have the theme, Kalayaan, Kinabukasan, Kasaysayan, Freedom, Future, History. Let us pay tribute to the heroes who paved the path to freedom, while we pay tribute to historical heroes. Let us remember the present-day heroes among us: soldiers, airmen, sailors, marines, Coast Guard personnel, athletes, medical professionals, educators, sanitation workers, farmers, police officers, and firefighters, all striving to create a better future. And now, let us welcome the Pavia National High School Senior Scout Outfit 274 for the entrance of colors.